Hello and good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Saturday edition session of Back to Basics, Developmentally Appropriate Practices for Preschoolers. We are so happy that you chose to share your Saturday morning with us today and attend this session. My name is Anna Avalos Atkinson, and along with my colleague and friend Jasmine Reinhardt, we want to welcome you and say thank you for joining us. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to share a little bit about ourselves. I'm going to just pass the mic over to Jasmine so she can share some things about her.
Thank you, Anna. So my name is Jasmine Reinhardt. I've been in the early childhood education field in various roles for about 10 years, and I'm just super excited to be here with you all today to talk to you about developmentally appropriate practices. It's such an important topic, and I hope you all learn a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jasmine. And about myself, I am Anna Avalos Atkinson, as I said, and both Jasmine and myself are quality and education coaching specialists here at the Early Learning Coalition of Broward County. I've been in the field for a little over 30 years, and I love sharing experiences and learning from experiences from our participants in these sessions. I'm very passionate about professional development, so this is just another opportunity for me to partake in a great interactive session such as today. We hope that you will engage in our chat conversations. We have polls for you. We have some videos to share. So hopefully it will be an informative session and you'll be able to take some of this information back with you and apply it in your practice. So yes, DAP is the topic of conversation today. So here we go. All right. So before we get started today, we just want to review some webinar housekeeping information. For some of you who have joined us in the past for webinars, this slide will look familiar. Is just to let you know how to operate the little panel that's either on the left or right side of your screen. You're going to click on the arrow. It's most likely it's closed. So you're going to click on the little orange rectangle with the white arrow to open it. You're going to click on questions, a little questions section there. It'll open up the little panel so you can type any questions or share any comments. Respond to any other questions that we might have for you. So we encourage you to engage in that way with us today. Also, we have 5 handouts for you. Please make sure that you download them. They're very useful, very informative, and they certainly do apply to the topic of conversation of developmentally appropriate practices for today. Make sure that you click on each and every one of the handouts so that a PDF document will open up and it'll allow you to download it, save it into your computer, and use it as well. Also, we want to share this information in reference to proprietary interests, and it's a policy of the ELC of Broward County that if instructors have any vested interest in any product, instrument, device, service, or materials that we use in these learning events, that we must disclose this information to you. Just so you know, Jasmine or myself do not have any vested proprietary interest in any of the content, material, or resources presented today. If you feel that there is a breach of this policy, please contact the ELC at elcbtraining@elcbroward.org. All right, so some information about the attendance credits and post-test and evaluations. So all ELC Broward trainings are for in-service hours only. All participants must complete both the post-test and training evaluation survey to receive a certificate of participation in the LMS, which is the Learning Management System, which you use to register for this training. Participants who arrive more than 15 minutes after the training has started will not receive a certificate of participation with those hours. Again, participants who leave before the training has ended will not receive a certificate of participation with those in-service hours. So we thank you for arriving on time, and please be prepared to remain with us until the end of the training. In order to be marked as attended, you must be logged in on the computer using the email address or download the GoToWebinar app on your phone. So remember, upon completion of this training and all the other trainings that you register for on the LMS, there will be a post-test of 5 questions and a training evaluation survey of 9 questions that will launch in the LMS, in the Learning Management System. You can either scan the QR code with your phone, the camera on your phone right now to access your account. That will take you directly there by clicking on that QR code, and make sure that you do complete all that information in order to receive that certificate of participation. Okay, so let's go over the learning outcomes for today's presentation. First, we're going to recognize developmentally appropriate practices with preschoolers. We're going to name the basic principles of development. We're going to identify any misunderstandings about developmentally appropriate practice. We're going to discover ways to incorporate developmentally appropriate practice in our daily planning and learning environment, and recognize the importance of developing relationships with families. Okay, so those are the 5 learning outcomes for today. All right, so just to get our minds kind of set into this concept of developmentally appropriate practices, let's read together this quote, and I would love to hear in the chat what your thoughts are about it. Okay, so the quote reads, "Children benefit most from teachers who have the skills, the knowledge, and judgment to make good decisions and are given the opportunity to use them." Okay, so I'm gonna give you just a few seconds to kind of process that and share with us what you think this means or what this means to you. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does it mean that, children benefit from these types of teachers who have the skills, who have the knowledge, who have judgment, right? Appropriate judgment to make really good decisions, and are given the opportunity to use these skills and this judgment. What does that mean? What does that mean to you, Jasmine, when you think about that?
That's a really good question. I really think it just means that children benefit from that support,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel, it's the obligation, right, that we have. We, as teachers, we do have the responsibility to make sure that we are well informed, that we benefit from trainings, and we kind of polish our skills as we go along in this journey of learning, which is a journey that us as educators take, which is a lifelong journey, right? And so we're constantly polishing our skills and gaining more knowledge and polishing our judgment to make sure that we make the best decisions that will directly affect these children that we care for and that we support as they grow and learn, right? So we have some responses in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing. Sandra says they need us as teachers to teach them how to develop appropriately as they grow. Perfect. Yes, well said, Sandra. Thank you. Christine says children benefit from those who are well trained and are able to facilitate them. Absolutely. So those skills that we learn as we are doing today. So kudos to everyone for attending this Saturday session. This is a perfect example, right, of how we as teachers really seek more knowledge. We seek a better understanding, right? And so we know in early childhood, in particular, in education in general too, things change a lot, right? And so we're making our craft better. We're getting better at what we do, and so we reflect on our practice, we improve our practice, and so this is just part of that process. So I thank you all for being here and thank you for sharing in the chat. Thanks, Jasmine, for sharing your thoughts as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, take it away, Jasmine.
All right, so let's break the ice. So the question is, what is the first word that you think of when you hear the term developmentally appropriate practice? Type it into the chat. What do you think about? There's no right or wrong answer. All right, let's see, growing, age.
Okay, yeah, age goes into play for sure.
Anybody else have any thoughts? What do they think of? Fun activities, I like that.
Yep. Responsible decisions.
Ooh, yes.
Age appropriate. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Appropriate for age and stage. Absolutely, Christine.
absolutely.
Yeah.
These are all really good answers of how children learn.
Mhm.
I see a lot of great answers in this question box.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. Those juices are flowing this morning.
Yes, you all are
Kathy
awake.
says ready for it. Kathy said, we're ready for it. The kids are ready for it. Everyone's ready.
Independence. I
Awesome.
like that too.
Yeah. Judith says independence. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. A lot
Right,
of
these
great
are all
responses.
really great. Yes. Okay, so in the spirit of that icebreaker, we're going to launch into our first poll. And the question is, developmentally appropriate practice for preschool children refers to which age group? Is it A, 3-year-olds, B, 4-year-olds, C, 5-year-olds, or D, all of the above? What are you all thinking?
Okay.
Gonna launch the poll. We
Mm-hmm.
want you all to vote, vote, vote.
Absolutely. Want to give you a few seconds. Now, if you cannot access the poll on your screen, if you can't make a choice on your screen, go ahead and put the response in the chat. I already see a couple of people responding in the chat, Jasmine. So just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you so much, Emma.
Great. Ooh, a lot of people voting.
A lot of people are voting. Okay, what percent are we at?
We are at 78%. Woohoo! Awesome. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close and share.
All right, let's see what the results are.
Okay, ready? Here we go.
Yes, majority said all of the above. That is correct.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as you said, we think about this. Well, 3 years old, yeah, it falls into that. 4 years old, yeah, it does fall into that. 5 years old, yes. But the correct answer is all of them, right? All 3, 4, and 5-year-olds fall into that preschool age group. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Everyone, good job.
So let's talk some more about what is DAP. So DAP, or developmentally appropriate practice, refers to using what we know about child development to make thoughtful and appropriate decisions for early childhood practices. It involves understanding how children develop and learn at various ages and stages and takes individual differences into account. Developmentally appropriate practice requires both meeting children where they are, which means that teachers must get to know them well, and enabling them to reach goals that are both challenging and achievable. So moving forward, developmentally appropriate practice is research-based and it promotes adapting learning in a way that engages children. So all these things that we're going to talk about are based on research about how children grow and develop. So speaking of that, we're going to start with our first video. What is DAP? And as you watch the video, feel free to type some thoughts into the question box. And we're going to talk a little bit about it at the end of the video as well. So just make sure you observe kind of what's going on, what do you see, what stands out, and we're going to see.
All righty, here we go.
All right. All right.
Mhm.
So, what are you all's thoughts about the video? Type it in. Tell me what you were thinking. What did you see? What stood out? I'll give
So
you all a minute to answer.
so while they're answering, can I share what I saw?
You sure can, Miss Anna.
Well, so I saw, when she was saying about the importance of recognizing children's strengths, but also supporting their weaknesses, right?
Ooh,
Or their specific needs. I thought that was key when it comes to, providing children with those learning opportunities, and really meeting them where they're at, right? And so I think that was an important um, part of that was shared in that video. Also, when they did the small groups and how they focus on those individual needs, right?
yes.
Mhm.
I see in the chat we're starting to get a little bit of response. So I see
Mhm.
providing opportunities to excel. I see positive interactions.
Yes.
I see group interaction. Yes, these interactions are all very important. I love that you all caught that.
Mhm. Yeah. And also just to note, and I'm sure everyone else caught that as well, how the teachers were engaged, right, with the children. It wasn't the teacher walking around, but actually sitting and playing and engaging with the kids.
Yes, that's so true. I
There's
also
more,
like the fact a lot of it was child led more so than
right.
teacher led.
And she did say that, right? They're providing opportunities to move about freely, she said, as they engage
Yes.
with the materials. Oh, there's more
And
responses in the chat.
so I see teaching time becomes fun and learning easy.
Yes, Sandra, very good comment.
I see children's needs are met by providing opportunities for them to develop meeting at stages of development. Oh, developmental meeting at stages of development.
Right, right.
Yes.
Great comment by Christine. Very nice.
Yes, very well thought out. Okay, well, y'all, we really hit the nail on the head, just kind of seeing what was going on in that video. So let's talk about why it is important. So DAP reduces learning gaps, increases achievement for all children, and allows students to share and engage in the learning process while they solve their own problems as they learn new information. Developmentally appropriate practices are proven in research to help children succeed. So developmentally appropriate practices are based on what we know about young children, about how young children learn. They're relevant to children's life experiences. They're based on the children's current knowledge and abilities. They're respectful of cultural and individual differences in learning styles. They are responsive to the interests and needs of the children. They are focused on the learning process, not the end result. They are thought-provoking, stimulating, and challenging for the minds of young children. And they are based on the philosophy that children are competent and trustworthy and can make good decisions if given the opportunity and practice.
Excellent.
So that leads us to our first quote. It says, "The goal of early childhood education should be to activate the child's own desire, natural desire to learn." And that's from Miss Maria Montessori. So what do you all think about when you hear that quote? What does it mean to you? Type in. I want to see what you all are thinking. What does it mean to activate the child's own natural desire to learn? You have any thoughts on that, Anna, while we're waiting for a few?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my mind when I see it, what stands out is that natural desire to learn. So children are not, they're born wanting to learn, right? That natural instinct to just learn and soak in all kinds of information. As when they're little, they're exploring, they're touching, using their senses, and as they grow, they're asking questions, making comments, engaging with the world around them. And so, as educators, how do we activate this natural desire? That's the question, right? So when we're talking about DAP, we're thinking about, well, how do we do that? How do we motivate? How do we stimulate that inquisitive nature, right, of children? So yeah, it's a cool quote. I like that. Very
We have a
simple,
little
but
bit of,
very powerful. Very simple
yeah,
quote, very powerful.
we have a little bit of chat. So Christine says to stimulate what is innate. I like that. Renee says curriculum based on child's interest. That's true. I like that. Very child interest focused. Gloria talked about make activities fun and easy to do so children don't get frustrated. That's a really good one. These are all really good responses.
Yeah, definitely. That's important too. Keep them
Yeah.
busy. Keep
So
them
that
busy.
leads us to our next poll. And this poll asks us, all children develop at the same pace and learn in the same ways. Is that true or is that false? Do all children develop at the same pace and learn in the same ways? Is that true or is that false? So we're getting ready to launch the poll, and I want you all to vote, vote, vote. Do children develop at the same pace? Is that and learn in the same ways? True or false?
All right,
Tap
let's see what
in.
everyone thinks. Oh, I see Marva already put in the chat false. Okay, so remember, if you can't choose on the screen, then you can just put it on the chat. Okay, Liliana put false also on the chat. All right, so we got 65% voted. Keep voting, everyone.
Voting. True or false?
All
We
right.
want to hear from you all.
Yes, your opinion counts. Your voice matters.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Close and share. Here we go.
Let's see.
Thanks
And
everyone for voting. Okay, here we go.
yes, and the answer is false. A majority of people agreed that all children do not develop at the same pace and do not learn in the same ways. Very good.
Awesome. And so for those folks who voted, that it was true. Hopefully at the end of the session, we'll share some information that will explain why, right?
Absolutely.
Well,
All right. So moving forward, we're going to talk about what are the basic principles of child development and learning. So, NACCE's guidelines and recommendations for developmentally appropriate practice are based on the following 9 principles and their implications for early childhood education professional practice. So, we're getting ready to dig a little deeper into those principles now. And if you're not aware, NACCE stands for the National Association for the Education of Young Children. So, let's talk about the basic principles. So, number 1, development and learning. They are dynamic processes that reflect the complex interplay between a child's biological characteristics and the environment, each shaping the other as future patterns of growth. So, number 2 is all domains of child development and learning approaches are important. Physical development, cognitive development, social and emotional development, and linguistic development, including bilingual or multilingual development, as well as approaches to learning, are important. Each domain both supports and is supported by the others. Number 3, play is essential for all children, birth through age 8. Play promotes joyful learning that fosters self-regulation, language, cognitive, and social competencies, as well as content knowledge across disciplines. So moving forward, number 4, all developmental steps will not always look the same. So that's what our poll was just about. Although general progressions of development and learning can be identified, variations due to cultural contexts and experiences and individual differences must also be considered. Number 5, children are constantly learning. Children are active learners from birth, constantly taking in and organizing information to create meaningful meaning through their relationships, their interactions, and their environment and their overall experiences. Number 6, children's motivation to learn is heavily influenced by their environment. Their motivation to learn is increased when their learning environment fosters their sense of belonging, purpose, and agency. Curricula and teaching methods build on each child's assets by connecting their experiences in school or learning environment to their home and community settings. And number 7, children learn through integration. They learn in an integrated fashion that cuts across academic disciplines or subject areas. Because the foundations of subject area knowledge are established in early childhood, educators need subject area knowledge and understanding of the learning progressions within each subject area and knowledge about teaching each subject area's content effectively. Number 8, learning and development advances when children are challenged appropriately. To achieve at a level just beyond their current mastery and when they have many opportunities to reflect on and practice newly acquired skills. And number 9, when used appropriately, technology can be a valuable educational tool. Used responsibly and intentionally, technology and interactive media can be valuable tools for supporting children's development and learning. And the keywords there are responsibly and intentionally. So, Miss Anna, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Ready? Thank you so much, Jasmine, for sharing that information with us. And it's important to note that just like we mentioned earlier, well, I was saying earlier how early childhood education, we're always kind of advancing and modifying and changing. NACCE just recently changed or modified these basic principles. And so this is what we're sharing with you today, the reason why we have to be intentional in our learning and intentional in our practice, right? So thanks for sharing that information. So now we're going to ask everyone to share in the chat again. And think about this question. What are or what can be some challenges when implementing developmentally appropriate practice after hearing those basic principles that Jasmine just shared with us? What can be some challenges that you can think of that could possibly be, limiting us in applying some of these basic principles that we just reviewed together? What do you think? Think about your practice in the classroom. Share in the chat, please. Okay, so I see some responses. Sandra stated getting attention if they're overactive. Okay, getting attention. Okay, if they're overactive, or providing that support right when they need it, if they're fully engaged in something. Not having appropriate materials, Kathy says. That's a challenge. That is absolutely a challenge. Now remember, some challenges may be within your control that you can kind of, resolve. And some challenges may be out of your hands, right? Out of your control. And so we need to focus on things that we can change. And certainly those basic principles that Jasmine shared with us are a lot of those things we can really implement and be reflective in our own practice. But certainly, the issue with appropriate materials, having good resources, Michelle stated, planning time, Ronit said. Yes, planning time. Yeah, time is an issue, right? We're always doing something. We're always like back up against the schedule sometimes, right? Providing that support and providing the attention Maria shared. In particular, when we have maybe one teacher with a large group of kids, maybe, or you have certain children that require a specific amount of attention or specific support from you. The language, when kids are learning a new language, yes, Liliana, that can be a challenge, absolutely, and that's a whole total different conversation. But that's a very good point, absolutely, the language, right? So you have to make time, you have to plan for that as well, to give those children the support that they need. Very good point. Giving each child a chance to participate and be the leader. Judith, that's a great point. We want to enhance and encourage that independence, right? Those leadership skills. Yes, that's a great point. When everybody sometimes wants to lead the pack, right? Lead the way. That's very difficult to do. So we need to be fair and then provide those opportunities for everyone to engage. Well, thanks everyone for all those responses. Those were great. Yeah, certainly providing that one-on-one time for children, right? In the individualized learning, kind of what we saw earlier in the video, how those teachers kind of separated the groups based on their developmental stages, right? What they're able to do and where they need that extra support. And so providing, that one-on-one time, I think is a real challenge sometimes to provide that individualized learning. And then sometimes parents too, parents' expectations. Again, those are things that sometimes are out of our control. So parents' expectations of what they want their children to be able to accomplish, that sometimes is not developmentally appropriate or age appropriate for their child. So, some challenges to think about. And then Maritza just shared, finally sharing with other classmates, right? So yeah, we know that some adults don't know how to share. It's very difficult sometimes to encourage and support children in that learning process of sharing as well. So modeling is great for that. But yeah, these are great responses. All right, so thank you for sharing in the chat, everyone. Okay, so we're going to continue. So with those challenges in line, right? When we look at challenges, sometimes some misunderstandings about developmentally appropriate practice, like what I just mentioned about parents, and even some teachers, kind of have this thought in mind of what developmentally appropriate is. Sometimes those misunderstandings lead to some of the challenges that we may face, right, in our practice. So let's take a look at a couple. There's many, but we're going to take a look at 5 today and share with you on that. Make sure that you share, or you put any questions in the chat, or share any comments about what you hear as we're going through the content of today's session, okay? So the first one is Developmentally appropriate classrooms are unstructured. I know you've heard that, but I have. So a developmentally appropriate classroom is not rigid nor chaotic, right? Um, and certainly not just teacher driven, right? So that means that the teacher directs everything that's happening. Actually, every developmentally appropriate classroom is structured, but the structure is just not as obvious as the structure that you would see in a teacher directed classroom. There's more of a balance, right? The structure here we're talking about refers to, how the teacher creates the lesson plans, how she organizes her time and the time of the children, how the space and materials are organized, and how the overall interactions in the environment are set up so that the children can achieve, those goals and objectives in development. The second one I want to share is developmentally appropriate practice uses no goals or objectives, right? Again, thinking about that chaotic space, which is not really true. A child-centered classroom does not mean that there are no goals or objectives involved. Child-centered is often thought as child-dictated, maybe, or child-determined, when it would be better described as child-sensitive. And in a child-sensitive environment, we take into consideration the child's interests, child's ideas, and we incorporate activities to motivate and encourage the child to engage and then have control. So the child has control of their learning experiences, right? So we make sure that we are aware of those ages and stages and those specific needs of specific children so we can then support their learning process. Then the third one is, in developmentally appropriate classrooms, there's no way to tell if children are learning. Have you heard this? I've heard it a couple times, yeah. The misunderstanding here is that methods other than traditional techniques, such as testing, right? Standardized testing, really, to kind of gauge where children are retaining, right? All that material that's presented to them. So of course there's pressure for accountability, right? And so teacher accountability to see, where the children are, what the children are learning, how the teacher is teaching, right? So even very young children, in our classrooms, we see teachers kind of testing them, what color is this? How many is this? Right? How many do I have, right? So in a developmentally appropriate classroom, we know that learning is taking place through conversations, through questions, through interactions, right? Through play. We mentioned play already. Play comes to mind throughout this developmentally appropriate classroom for sure. And then through those close observations that we have of the children throughout the day, we can determine the level of learning that's achieved by each individual child. So that will help us plan accordingly to make sure that we're scaffolding and supporting that child's learning process. Okay, so we can certainly tell children are learning in a developmentally appropriate classroom. The fourth one is that developmentally appropriate programs do not include academics, right? Because they see children playing, engaging, manipulating materials, having conversations, asking questions. So they're thinking, well, where's the academics here, right? So academic concepts are really embedded throughout the learning experiences that we provide in an early childhood classroom that is developmentally appropriate. Children's learning and interest in materials naturally brings them to having those conversations, right? So their language, their literacy skills are enhanced. And also mathematical related activities and explorations, like when we, math concepts, science concepts. And so academic content is really presented by integrating all those classroom experiences, as opposed to what we traditionally think of as a teacher-directed method of instruction, where all children sit and stare at the teacher and listen to her lecture, right? And that's not what we see in a developmentally appropriate classroom. And then finally, number 5 says that teachers teach minimally or not at all in developmentally appropriate classrooms. Well, this is not true. This again stems from the idea that teachers must be directing all activities and controlling all the happenings in the classroom in order for children to learn, right? And so In this misunderstanding, it implies that in a developmentally appropriate classroom, teachers are just passive observers and not really in charge of anything, right? But really, teachers are in charge, as I mentioned earlier, but they're not really dominating, right? What's going on. And also very important is that we use a variety of teaching strategies, and those teaching strategies do create a structure that support children's learning activities. So those are some 5 misunderstandings about developmentally appropriate practice. All right, so I don't see anything in the chat about that, so we're gonna move on. So this is just something to think about. Think about this quote. So we can get so caught up in trying to prepare children for the next step that we forget to just slow down and appreciate what they can do, what they know, and who they are right now. Embrace the now, especially when it comes to this age group, right? The preschool children, the little ones that we have. Embrace who they are, what they can do, right? Their abilities, what they know, and who they are right now. And remember that, who these children are really based on their experiences, right? They bring to the classroom lots of experiences from home. Their lives really are full of different opportunities that are provided at home and at school. So share in the chat anything that this particular quote brings to mind. What does it mean to get caught up? Do you see yourself as getting caught up and trying to prepare children sometimes, in what we just stated as some of those misunderstandings maybe, you know, in having more control in the classroom and not really, allowing the children to choose and participate and engage and interact in their own ways? Think about that. What does that mean to you, Jasmine? Let's give the folks a few minutes or a few seconds. We don't have lots of time, but a few seconds to share in the chat. What does that mean to you?
Well, personally, it really made me reflect as one of the ages I formally taught was pre-K, and we used to always hear about kindergarten readiness. They need to be prepared for kindergarten. They need to know how to do this. They need to know how to do that. When you get very caught up in, especially a curriculum that doesn't really support developmentally appropriate practice and learning, you can feel very stressed if this child doesn't know how to do this and things like that. But this is like such a good reminder to like be in the moment. This isn't going to last always. And if you really enjoy, what you're doing, you need to be present with the children.
Right. Right, and that's a great point. And think about that misconception or the misunderstanding that I shared earlier about those standardized testing, and is what you said, right? About the kindergarten readiness, getting them set for school, getting them to make sure that they know their colors, their letters, that, and all that stuff. And then we get caught up in that. And so we try to like drill this information into the kids, not really let them enjoy that learning process and let them, we need to really slow down and appreciate, as the quote says, what they're able to do, right? And allow them to take part and engage in that learning process and make some of those decisions that are affecting them as they learn. And so, yes, it's important for them to be ready for school, absolutely. But it's those strategies that we use and the way, right, that we present some of that information.
Yes.
That they're going to need, and making sure that we are meeting them where they're at, right? So getting to know them on a personal level and appreciating what it says here, that what they can do and who they are. So getting to know them on a personal level and understanding what their needs are and who they are as an individual, I think it's super important. So Sandra shared in the chat real quick, at times go by a meeting, a lesson, quote, and forget about personal care and patience with the children. Okay.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
you do
Yeah.
focus on those lesson plans and the
Yep.
quotas,
Yep.
what they should be doing. You can
Yep.
get so focused on that lesson plan
Yep.
that you forget
Exactly.
to just enjoy the moment and let the
Yeah.
children enjoy the moment. So
Right. Embracing the now, as it says. So that's a very good point, Sandra. Thank you. And again, we do, some things are out of our control. So, our schools may be involved in those programs that maybe, we need that. Accountability is important for sure. but we still can be accountable. Children are still learning, right? It's just the way that we're teaching and how we're bringing that information to them, and how we're incorporating it and embedding it into all those fun activities that we do with them. That's what it's about. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing that in the chat. She says, yes, thank you. Okay, wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Jasmine. All right, so we're going to now talk about the guidelines for developmentally appropriate practice in action. So just like those 9 basic principles that Jasmine shared with us earlier, these have been revised. The basic principles used to be 12, now they're 9. These used to be 5, now they're 6, these guidelines. And so these guidelines really are a way for using the knowledge of child development and learning in the context of what we do with the children in the classroom. Okay, and so these really address decisions that us as professionals, right? We are early childhood professionals, decisions that we make in the interrelated areas of practice, right? So these are 6 key and very valuable guidelines that the National Association for the Education of Young Children kind of came up with so that we can follow. And we have creating a caring community of learners. We have engaging in reciprocal partnerships with families. We have observing, documenting, and assessing. We have teaching to enhance each child's development, planning and implementing an engaging curriculum, and finally, demonstrating professionalism as an early childhood educator. So we're going to take a look at each one of these real quick. And each one has lots of information. We've included the NACI website at the end of the presentation in the resources slide. And we encourage you to Google and log in and read more depth and more deeper information about this to clarify either gain more understanding about this, or just kind of get some more ideas on what you can do to improve your practice. So the first one is creating a caring, equitable community of learners. And community of learners is a phrase or a quote or a term that's been used a lot lately. And so we know that early childhood settings or the classrooms that we have for our children really are their first communities outside of their home, right? And therefore they're very influential, right, in their development. And so we make sure that we provide interactions where children learn how to treat each other and how they can expect to be treated as well. Here, educators really create and foster a community of learners, right? And so we encourage each member of the community to feel valued for what they bring to the community. And we make sure that everyone feels supported to consider and contribute to one another's well-being and learning. Okay, and so the role of the community really, and our role as facilitating this, is to provide, make sure that we have that physical, emotional, and cognitive environment that is conducive to the development and learning for each of the children in our care. So what does it look like? Okay, we see this every day. This is a typical classroom. These are just some pictures that kind of represent what goes on in our classroom. So we see these children being feeling like part of the community, feeling valued, right? Relationships here are nurtured with each one of the children. Each of the member of the community respects and is accountable to one another. So accountability is huge, right? So we respect each other and we are accountable for being responsible and taking care of our environment and taking care of one another. The physical environment protects the health and safety of the learning community members, and all efforts are made to help each and every member of the community feel safe and able to focus and just focus on learning, focus on being who they are, being able to express themselves, and being able to learn, right, and grow from these experiences that we provide. The second one is engaging in reciprocal partnerships with families and fostering community connections. Now, as I said, a lot of these you already know. I don't know if you were aware that these were set as guidelines by NACI, but they are. So these are a lot of things we're already doing. So this second guideline really talks about how it's important that we have this practice, right? So we, in a developmentally appropriate classroom, we require deep knowledge and understanding about each child, right? Information that is particularly coming from the parents, right? Through those respectful, reciprocal relationships with the children's families, right? We want to use their expertise about their own children. We want to make sure that that information they share with us, they know is very valuable. So we have to make sure that we take that responsibility, right, for forming and maintaining those strong relationships. Okay, so I've heard teachers say, well, the mom doesn't come into the room, or I reach out to her and, she doesn't respond or whatever. But, we really do have to make that effort. We really do have to make that effort to make sure that they are fully engaged in the learning and growing process of their child. Okay, so what does that look like? Okay, so again, we work in collaboration, in partnerships with them. We maintain that frequent two-way communication with them, and we have to recognize what forms of communication they're comfortable with, right? Not everyone is going to be comfortable with a note in the backpack. Not everyone's going to be comfortable with a text message or an app conversation or chat that you might send, a group chat, or there's lots of the classroom apps now being used, with the pandemic. And so we want to make sure that we are aware what they're comfortable with. Welcome them in the settings. I'm not for sure if that is readily available in your site, but making sure that there are multiple opportunities for family participation, whether it's in person or virtual. Acknowledge their choices and goals for their child and respond with sensitivity and respect to those concerns or preferences, and making sure that we are constantly sharing knowledge back and forth about that particular child, making sure that the parents know about, have some knowledge and understanding of what child development is, right, in those stages and of development, so that they have some appropriate expectations, right? So we're all on the same page. And also making sure that we are aware of what's happening in the community, making sure that, what resources are available. So if you cannot, help a particular family or a child with a specific need they may have, that you can refer them to an outside source in the community if necessary. The third guideline is then observing, documenting, and assessing children's development and learning. And here we know how important it is, how essential it is, these three steps, right, for educators to really plan, to implement, and to evaluate how effective those experiences are that we're providing for them. And so we're talking about both formal and informal assessments, but either way, they have to be developmentally, culturally, and linguistically sensitive. Okay, and be careful with those implicit and explicit biases that sometimes, might affect, some of parts of this process. And so making sure that we stay focused and aware, of some changes through trainings, reflections, and regular reviews of collected data as well. So making sure that that is on the table. And it looks like just what you see here, right? We're focusing assessments, for example, on the children's progress towards their developmental and educational goals. Again, reflecting any input from the parents if necessary, okay? These observation, documentation, and assessments really should be ongoing. They should be strategic, they should be reflective, and certainly purposeful, okay? So we are collecting information, we're making sense of it, right? We're kind of breaking it down, we're using those observations, we're documenting constantly, and this information will certainly guide what goes on in the early childhood setting. Okay, so the fourth guideline is teaching to enhance each child's development and learning. And here, we're talking about really encompassing a wide range of skills and strategies that are adapted to the age, the development, the individual characteristics, right? Remember, getting to know that child individually, and the family and social and cultural contexts of each child to make sure that we are meeting all those specific target needs, right? It's really grounded, this guideline is grounded in the caring relationships that educators use as natural nurturers, right? So I always say that to my teachers. We are natural nurturers, right, with each child and family, as well as with all the children and families in our programs. And so obviously these teaching practices are designed to foster the development and learning for each child across all the domains and all the subject areas. Okay, and let me just take a second to note, and Jasmine touched on it earlier, about the joy of play, right? The joyful play. So play is a critical part of this learning process, right? So we need to incorporate frequent opportunities for play in our teaching strategies, plan learning environments that provide, self-directed play, guided play, and also teacher-directed instruction as well. So it's all about maximizing those opportunities for children to choose materials, choose their playmates, choose the topics that they're going to be involved in, and different approaches, right? How they're going to use the materials throughout the day for all the children, right? So just creating those opportunities. What does that look like? So we demonstrate and model, right, our commitment and our care through our actions, through our attitudes, through our own enthusiasm and curiosity, right, that we express as we're engaging with these children. So when you look at these two pictures here on the slide, these teachers are engaged. Look at their, facial expressions. Look at their focus, right? Look at their proximity. They're close to the children. They're right at their level, and they're, I'm sure asking questions, right? Making comments, and just fully engulfed in that moment. Kind of what that quote said, right? Letting the child be himself, meeting him where they're at. What he brings to the table is important and valued, right? So we use our knowledge of each child and family to make those learning experiences meaningful, accessible, and responsive to each and every child. So there is a guideline about curriculum, but we also effectively implement a comprehensive curriculum so that each child attains those specific goals, again, as I said earlier, across all the domains. We're talking about physical, social, emotional, cognitive, linguistic, and general learning competencies, and across all the subject areas, right? Language, literacy, including second language acquisition, like it was mentioned earlier in the chat. So, making sure that we provide all those opportunities. So we make sure that the environment is well planned, that the schedule meets the needs of the children, and all the opportunities and activities promote each child's development and learning. Okay, so just using that large repertoire of skills and teaching strategies that we acquire through professional development opportunities such as what you're experiencing today. All right, so before we continue with the rest, I think it's two more of the guidelines. We're going to do another poll to kind of break it up. And this one says, through play, children learn to develop self-regulation skills. So think about that. Through play, this is our third poll. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. And if you cannot choose your response on the screen, just type it into the chat, and I'll keep an eye out on that. So through play, children learn to develop self-regulation skills. What do we think? What do we think? Okay, so 43%, 47% voted. Woo. Rapid voting on this one. Awesome sauce. Jasmine, we are rocking and rolling. Okay, 67%. So Valeria stated true on the chat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close. We have 75% that's voted. Thank you, everyone who voted. Appreciate your voice and your opinion. We're going to share. And ta-da, 91% said true. Through play, children actually do learn to develop self-regulation skills. Okay. Awesome, and we're going to kind of find out how that works, why that is. Is that true? Yes, it is true. All right, so let's look at a video that's gonna show us, it's gonna open up that little window into play, right? And we've mentioned it a couple of times so far in this presentation. So this video is called The Importance of Play. So we're going to share with you now. Okay, we'll just make some notes and you can share in the chat, any comments, and we'll talk about it afterwards. The importance of play. Here we go. All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Um, and so I did see a couple of comments that people could not hear, so I apologize for that. I'm not sure if it's the audio settings on the computer, so I'm so sorry for that. There, if you can see the slide, the link is right there for the video. If you want to just take a picture or just jot it down, jot down the name of the video, you can certainly find it on YouTube. But so lots of great points were shared in that particular video, right, Jasmine? And I think that, yeah, some really important points about, what's taking place during play, how important it is. It really is important as children are engaging with one another, manipulating those materials, right? And so their desire to play, their curiosity and find out about how things work, right? Important point about how children learn from those mistakes that they make, right? The process of learning involves a lot of mistakes. Mistakes are good. We learn from mistakes, right? They're developing their language, their creativity, their imagination, mimicking experiences by recalling those experiences, right? They're learning turn taking, right? They're learning about cooperation, how to process information, right? Their thinking skills are being enhanced. So on and on. There's lots more that I did not note, but there's lots of information that was given there. What did you capture on that video, Jasmine? I'm going to ask folks to share in the chat any comments or anything particular that stood out in that video.
Honestly, I just really liked how free the children were.
Mhm.
That's always been something I've really liked about developmentally appropriate practice, like
Yeah.
how happy and free the children seem.
Yeah, and they looked focused, they looked engaged. That there's a mess everywhere, which is good. A mess is good. A mess means that they're exploring, that they're using the materials, right? That they're engaged and that they're learning, really, that they are learning. And also there was some mention about what we can do to support, right, this learning.
Yeah.
That we can provide songs, we can add music, add stories, certainly lots of conversations, and being intentional with those interactions. Yes, Sandra shared the interaction with children and teachers. That's so important because they can engage with materials and they can engage with each other, but we are there to kind of bring it up, right? Bring it up a notch, take it to another level, right? With our support and our engagement with them. So thank you for sharing. All right, so let's finish up our guidelines. And so guideline number 5 rather, planning and implementing an engaging curriculum to achieve meaningful goals. And again, we're talking about using a curriculum which consists of plans for the learning experiences through which children are going to acquire the knowledge, they're going to acquire skills, abilities, and understanding. So the curriculum here helps young children achieve those goals that are meaningful because, as I mentioned earlier, they are culturally and linguistically responsive, right? And developmentally and educationally significant. So what does that look like? Of course, we're going to have those goals that are important for young children's development and learning. So in general and culturally and linguistically responsive, right? We're going to have a curriculum that is comprehensive, an effective curriculum that targets identified goals across all the domains of development and the subject areas. And we're going to use this curriculum, right, to incorporate in our learning experiences that we provide for each of the children. We're going to collaborate together. We're going to work in groups or in pairs as colleagues, sharing information about the children and working to increase that continuity and coherence across the age level. So we want to make sure that we are aware if a child is coming to our classroom from another classroom, that we know the level stages of development that child is at, and then what that particular teacher did with that child in that classroom, so we have an idea of where he's at when he's coming to us, right? And then we're going to share that information with the teacher that he moves to next. So that information is important. Okay, is important to share. And finally, demonstrating professionalism as an early childhood educator. This is the sixth guideline. And of course, you know, educators use the guidelines of the profession, including these guidelines that we're sharing with you today and the 9 basic principles that Jasmine shared earlier. We use them to conduct ourselves as members of the profession, right? We are early childhood educators. We are professionals, and we serve as informed advocates for young children and their families, as well as the profession itself, if you think about it. So what does that look like, right? So we continue to gain knowledge, information to equip ourselves with resources that we can use to improve our practice, as well as our knowledge that we can share with the families, right? And it can help us develop a more appropriate strategies to use with the kids. And so we can join educational organizations, we can attend conferences, we can continue our professional development and growth through trainings and webinars. And so we demonstrate a high level of professionalism as we incorporate and use these guidelines, as well as those 9 principles, as I said, to kind of, you know, guide our practice. So great information to share. So hopefully you were able to point out some things that you're already doing and maybe some things that you would like to do. And with that, I pass the baton over to Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Anna.
You're
Really
welcome.
enjoyed your part of the presentation.
Thank you. Oh, and there were some comments. I apologize. Can I just really quickly just read them? I just want to make sure I acknowledge them. And so Christine said, I heard develop imagination, language, experiencing real life interactions, learning from mistakes. Awesome. And Sandra said curriculum that assists in moving and developing milestone markers for the children. Woohoo! On the ball. Love it. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing. Okay. I won't interrupt anymore. Thank you, Jasmine.
No problem.
All right.
All right. So now we're going to get into activities and scenarios. But first things first, we are going to do a poll.
Yay.
So it says in a developmentally appropriate practice, teachers ask many blank questions, close-ended, open-ended, or two-part. So you can launch that poll.
All
We'll see. What do you all think?
right. This is going to be a given. This is easy. All right. Again, if you can't vote on the screen, make sure you vote in the chat box. Just type in your response in the chat. Okay. So we got 52% voted. Come on, everyone.
Vote, vote.
Yep. Keep voting. All right. Oh, we got a mix here. Interesting. All right, so 72% voted. Okay, I think we're good. We're going to close and share, making sure we're mindful of our time. So sharing it is.
All right. So we had a little bit
A
two
mixed bag
party, a
here.
little bit
Interesting.
closed end, but open-ended was the majority, and that is the correct answer. So next we're going to watch a video about open-ended questions, which will hopefully give everybody a little bit of clarity to what we mean by open-ended questions in the classroom.
All right, so fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully it'll play because it's a really good video.
Hold on a second. All righty, so for some reason it is not cooperating, everyone. Tiffany?
Okay, Anna, go back to sharing the screen. Yeah, and then I'll try to play the video.
Hold on. Oh, got it. Hold on.
Looks like it might work now that we closed out the poll. We will see.
Just went back and forth. Okay, all right, everyone. Here we go. Fingers crossed. Let's just saying fingers crossed. Thanks, Tiffany. All right, here we go.
Was Lowe's.
All right. So I hope you all got some good information from that on what it means to ask an open-ended question and extend some more. You can feel free to, if you have any comments, to drop them in the chat. We're going to get ready to move forward since we're running a little short on time. So let's talk about our first scenario. It is time to plan an art activity. Since it is the beginning of fall, you found a cute pumpkin activity. The activity involves you cutting out all the pieces beforehand and having the children follow the template to glue the shapes and only using orange and brown markers for the pumpkin and the stem. My question for you, is this a developmentally appropriate activity? I see a no. Okay. So if it's not a developmentally appropriate activity, how could we make it a developmentally appropriate activity?
Let's see what some ideas are in the chat.
If we have a few ideas.
Maybe the children cut themselves.
Yes, a good one, Anna. Letting the children cut out their own stuff.
Instead of the teacher doing it. Okay.
I see provide materials to let students create their own version. Absolutely. Choices. The key word here is choices. So I love that. Yep, let them choose the colors or different materials. Decide how they want to color. Absolutely. You all are definitely on the right path.
Yes, lots of ways to make it a more developmentally appropriate activity.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing to just add choices. Let the children be able to make it their own.
Remember that guideline that we mentioned.
Yes. Somebody said it's not let them cut and create what they imagine it to be. Love that. Okay, scenario number 2. Children stand in line for 5 minutes waiting to go outside. Tommy starts to run around the classroom and Luke is poking Chloe. So I know some of us have been there before. So what are some ways that we can make transitions educational or more meaningful to help children remain engaged? How can we make transitions more engaging for children? I know my first thought, oh, yep, shorten the time. Absolutely. That's my first thought too. Oh, sing songs. Love that.
Yeah.
Let them become your helper. Oh, the chat is moving on this.
Yes.
Simon says,
Love
reading
it.
a book. Love it. Anything to get them active and engaged. You could have them maybe hop like frogs or wiggle like penguins or do a recall activity. You know, these are all ways. Marching in place. Yes, that movement is great. Use the lineup song, sing songs about what we're about to do, marching songs, create a song like yours. Well, you all have a lot of answers for this. I love it.
That's great.
These are great ideas for sure. So the key is just to make things more engaging and interactive and never have a time where children are just there, you know, just sitting, just waiting, because those are missed learning opportunities. So, I mean, you could even play I Spy or something like that.
Yep.
It's very simple. All right, and the third scenario, when it is time for centers, the teacher chooses what groups the children play in and decides what center each child goes to. So, is this developmentally appropriate? Why or why not? So the teacher chose the center and the teacher chose the play groups. The teacher chose everything. Is this developmentally appropriate? Why or why not?
And if not, what we can do. How can we make it developmentally appropriate?
How can we make it develop? Somebody said no, students have to make their own choices. Absolutely. No, children should be allowed to make the choice. Not appropriate, allow children to choose. Excellent.
Everybody got it?
Everybody got it. Y'all are on fire today in this
Kiss
chat.
your brain. Kiss your brain. Yes.
Yes, children need to make choices. But oh, I like that. Somebody said not appropriate, but they should be monitoring each area. Absolutely. I know sometimes teachers will say like, oh, these children don't play well together. So that's why I don't let them, play together. But it's up to us as educators to facilitate that play and learning
Right.
and be available to help alleviate some of those issues that may occur. So
Yes.
yeah.
Good job.
All right, so let's move to discover ways to incorporate developmentally appropriate practice into our daily planning and learning environment. And we have a short video just to show you all what it looks like.
Mhm.
So let's see.
Here we go.
All right, so as you can see, the children were all actively engaged. They all had something interesting to do. The teacher was really just there to kind of facilitate play and learning and kind of add to it and create conversations. And it was just great to see how focused they were. And I like to point out that even though the children could make choices and things like that, it was still structured. So that was awesome. So in that spirit, let's do this last poll. It says effective teachers maintain appropriate expectations, provide children with the right mix of challenge, support, and stimulation. Is that true or false? So let's launch that poll and let's vote, vote, vote. Quickly get those votes in there.
Okay, we got people voting, 45%, 50%.
Get in there, vote, vote, vote. Get ready to wrap it up.
All right.
All right.
Getting close and share.
And the answer is, 100% true.
Ooh.
It's all about providing that balance. Good job. Okay, briefly, let's just go over the importance of developing relationships with families. When parents do not feel comfortable in the school setting, they are less likely to support and participate in school events or speak to their child's teacher or principal about their concerns or goals for their child. Everyone misses out on valuable opportunities to strengthen the home-school connection and support children. So learning does not start and stop in the classroom. Partnerships with families are important for the child's overall growth and development. During these times, many in-person family engagement opportunities may not look the same, but there are still ways to build those connections. Keeping the lines of communication open is still important. Parents should be able to reach out virtually and set up virtual meetings as needed. Teachers can also provide activities that families can do at home that support learning objectives set within the classroom. For activities, families can record book readings or short art activities for the teacher to play in the classroom. Children only serve to benefit when both home and school work together and communicate to support their unique needs. So that is important, and a plan for change. So there's two questions. It says, what did you take from this training and what would you implement first? So you should just reflect on these questions. What did you take away? What would you implement first? You can drop that in the chat if you would like. Just tell us what you took away. And we also have a reflection. And you can just think about that or screenshot it. It says, how can I improve my conversations with children using open-ended questions? What changes do I need to make to my classroom environment to make it more developmentally appropriate for children? And how can I be more intentional when planning developmentally appropriate activities for my children? So these are all things that you can think about. You can take a screenshot, reflect on them later. And now I'm going to turn it over to Anna so we can wrap it up.
All right. Thank you so much, Jasmine. And thank you everyone for remaining with us throughout this session. We know we shared a lot of information with you, but just want to make sure that we touched on everything that we had planned for today. So these are the learning outcomes that we review with you. We recognize that developmentally appropriate practice with preschoolers. We named the basic principles of development. We identified misunderstandings about developmentally appropriate practice. We discovered ways to incorporate developmentally appropriate practice into our daily planning and learning environment. And finally, we just recognized the importance of developing relationships with families. So we covered a lot today.
We had a couple things in the chat, Anna.
Okay.
A couple takeaways. So we had a takeaway for children's need for contact from teacher and how to be continually active in their growth. I love that. And we also had implement first, more playing. Love that.
Great, Liliana and Sandra. Thank you for sharing. Yes, thanks for pointing that out, Jasmine. Okay, great. So these are the resources and websites. If you want to take a picture of that, that'd be great. So you can log into some of those websites for additional information. And then there's no training that I have without resources. These are books that are available. All of these are from NACCE. Just to point out, this is the latest developmentally appropriate practice book that just came out. This is where we find those 9 basic guidelines, rather the 6 guidelines and 9 basic principles that we reviewed with you today, and some others that are great reads. This is our contact information. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any additional questions that you were not able to come up with now, you can come up with later. You can reach out, or if you want to reach out and share some of those wonderful experiences that you have with the children implementing those developmentally appropriate practices. And just as a reminder before we log off that you will have the post-test and evaluation. We want to thank you for arriving on time and staying until the end of today's session. The post-test of 5 questions and training evaluation survey of 9 questions will launch. You can use this QR code, as we said earlier, or just log into your account. And we have our manager, Tiffany, who wanted to share just a little bit with you about that.
Thank you, Anna. So as Anna said, you are going to complete your post-test and training evaluation in our learning management system, LMS. So a little hint for you, when you log in to the LMS and you're going to go to that training that you just completed, so you're going to go to this training, Developmentally Appropriate Practices for Preschoolers, and then your post-test is going to be available in that training. Now, after you complete your post-test, if you click on the ELC logo, that's going to take you back to the My Registrations page. And then you're going to be able to go back into this training and click on the ELC evaluation form. And then your certificate will be available in this particular training in the LMS. So once again, for all of our trainings, if you click on the logo, that is going to take you back to that main My Registration page.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Alrighty, and with that, we appreciate your participation and your engagement today. It was an awesome, awesome session. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Jasmine. And thank you, Tiffany, for your support and your feedback as well. So want to make sure to remind you to download those handouts before we disconnect today. There's 5 handouts that you have to make sure that you take with you from today's session. Okay, any last words, Jasmine?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I just loved everybody's takeaways, and thank you all so much for being so involved in the chat. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We love the engagement.
And keep and engaging with your children and providing those developmentally appropriate opportunities for them to grow and learn with us. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Take good care. All right. Some nice thank you messages in the chat. Thank you all. We appreciate your work. All right. Share information with coworkers. Thank you, Liliana. Your ID. Someone has a question. How do you know what your ID is? I'm assuming that's on the LMS.
So if you go into the LMS, that's how you registered. If you don't remember your ID, we are going to be sending you, after I complete the attendance, you will be getting an email probably within, I have to complete the attendance first. That will take me a few minutes. And then after I do that, that's going to prompt our LMS system to send you an email with instructions on how to complete the post-test and training evaluations. It'll have a link. If you do not remember your email, your login information, once you get into the LMS, you can click forgot username or forgot password, and then that will let you be able to see what your username is and what your password is.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. All righty. Thank you, thank you. All right, everyone. So hopefully everyone downloaded the handouts and we are good to go. Thanks again for staying with us. And it was a great session. All right, everyone. Have a great remainder of the weekend. Rest up. Take good care.
Thank you.
Stay healthy. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.